Want to move on to our guest, Dale Wetzel, former longtime AP reporter, starting up a new venture with the Bakken Beacon and the Great Plains Examiner, and is going to be providing all sorts of wonderful political coverage, as he always has, for the state of North Dakota. Dale, nice to talk with you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rob. It's nice to talk to you.
Tell us what you saw and heard yesterday during the Representative Koppelman's unveiling of his version of DUI law reform for North Dakota.
Well, the premise of this is that the penalties for first-time DUI offenders need to be much tougher. Right now, first-time DUI offenders essentially do no jail time. They pay a fine. They are required to undergo alcoholism treatment or alcoholism evaluation, and that's basically it. And what this bill does, I mean, its most significant feature, in my opinion, is that it makes a first offense DUI. It triples the maximum fine to $750, and it says that you must serve at least 4 days in the Hooskow. And the premise here is that once someone gets clapped in the slammer for DUI, they become acquainted very quickly with how serious an offense they've committed.
There was also a provision in there, and we already have a 24/7 sobriety program in the state, but it doesn't apply to first offenders. This law would then apply that to first offenders. Am I understanding that right?
Well, there are certain, I guess I'll call them breaks that you can get from the penalties if you agree to enroll in the 24/7 sobriety program, if you submit to certain types of monitoring to make sure that you're not drinking, whether it be twice daily breath tests or wearing a device that can detect whether you've consumed alcohol.
What sort of questions were asked of? And I understand Attorney General Wayne Stenjum is backing this legislation, as well as Governor Dalrymple. Is that correct?
That's true. They were both at the news conference. They both spoke in favor of it. The Attorney General, in particular, talked about the need to have tougher penalties overall, and in particular, tougher penalties for first-time offenders, and also the need, in his opinion, to have greater consequences for people who are in the field and refuse to have a blood or breath test if they are pulled over for suspected drunken driving. Under this bill, this proposal that Representative Koppelman is introducing, if you refuse to take a breath test or give your blood, it's going to be the same as being convicted of DUI. The logic here is that people now largely refuse to take a test because the lack of a test makes it much more difficult to convict them in criminal court of driving under the influence. Well, if refusing a test is the same thing as being convicted of driving under the influence, you're much less likely to refuse to take the test.
So essentially, if you don't take the test, they're just going to assume that you're guilty, right? That would be the impact of the law, right? Okay. Yes. Now, what sort of questions were asked about this law? I mean, we have seen. I know one report of the press conference. I saw that Governor Dalrymple had talked about how DUI arrests had increased 53% since 2001, I think was the figure that he used. Was there any talk about, because I was looking this morning at alcohol-related fatalities and accidents, and those don't seem to go down. Was there any discussion about the impact that arresting more people is actually having on making the road safer?
No. What the questions mostly were about the details of the legislation. And there were also some questions about, the accident, the, horrific accident that prompted this bill. Would that accident have been prevented by this law? Would that person who was driving the wrong way down Interstate 94 and collided with a SUV carrying 3 people and an unborn child and killed them all, everyone died, including the drunk driver, would that have been prevented? And the answer that was given by the people who answered the question was either no or probably not. This person was a frankly, a habitual offender who had a record of driving with a suspended license. And it was, frankly, at best, it's unclear as to whether a person like that, who was driving at 3 times the legal limit, who had a history of DUI and driving with a suspended license, whether, tougher penalties for DUI would have affected him at all. I think that the point that they were trying to make was people who are arrested for the first time essentially need to be slapped around a bit and made aware of just how serious a crime it is, that it isn't just something where you pay a fine and don't suffer any consequences in terms of loss of your freedom. The point of the law, this proposal, is that someone who is arrested for the first time for DUI is going to get clapped in the slammer for 4 days at least, and that is essentially intended to be shock therapy.
Was there any discussion of the cost to taxpayers of this legislation? Because, I mean, obviously, it's a sobriety program, having law enforcement officials for people to come down and give breathalyzers twice a day, and things like that. I mean, there's obviously, and also requiring mandatory. If we've got 6,000 and some DUI arrests every year, I think actually 2011 was like 6,600. If we're requiring 4 days in prison for all those people, I mean, there's obviously going to be some significant impacts on costs. Was that discussed at all?
It was not discussed at the news conference. I asked some people about that afterward, and they really didn't have a good answer. I'm sure that, when the bill is introduced, there will be a compulsory estimate of its fiscal effects on local governments, because they're going to be bearing most of the cost, because these people are going to be in local jails. They're not going to be in the state penitentiary. At least almost all of them will not be in the state penitentiary. I can't, frankly, foresee a circumstance where they would be. They're going to be in the local jail. The local law enforcement agencies are going to have to take care of this testing regimen, if there is one, and their budgets are going to be affected. One of the debates on the bill is going to be, to what
Dale, got to cut you off there. We got to go to a break. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Rob Port, sitting in for the chairman, Scott Hennon. We'll be back right after this. Bill Hemmer from Fox News. Don't go away.